Okay, Brenda, we're recording. What's going on? Hit me.
Hi. So I have a question. I'm not understanding the speed bars, like the blue ones and the yellow ones. What are they saying?
What they're saying is that bar was formed very, very quickly relative to the other bars around them. And so what that means is if you have a dome where you have like where you trade, sometimes you see it go, tick by tick, and sometimes you see it go very, very fast. When it goes very, very fast, that means that all of the algos are trying to detect when they're lifting the bids or the offer. So when you hit the bids, you sweep through. Like if there's all those contracts on the bid side and they hit them very quickly, it indicates that someone's in a rush to make a trade in one direction
Okay.
or the other. So the blue ones are when they sweep the ask, and the yellow ones are when they sweep the bids. Okay, so but they're not as important as the other setups. So I want to make sure that you have them down. So what I'm going to do is I'll send the recording to you, and we'll kind of go step by step on what the setup on the
Okay.
what the four best setups are, and then there's I've been doing it for a long time, so there's variations on the setups. But if you stay to those four setups, in general, you should be able to stay break even to profitable, and probably I would say profitable with just a little bit of practice. Um, like you had really good entries today from where you were pointing them out.
Yeah, I entered 724, but then when I think someone in the room said something, or you said something,
I
so I
shorted.
sold right away.
Yeah, it was
So
right over
I
here. It was right. So that was right in. Let's see.
724, and then it was going down after. So I said, you know what? Let me just sell it here for
Oh wait,
profit of
seven
it
twenty
goes.
four. That had to be over here. So that's where you were. So what happened was a couple of things. So this was right. Um, this was occurring right in this little area before we broke
Mm-hmm.
down. So correct me. Were you long from 01 up to 24, and then I flipped and shorted? Nope, I was already done by the day here. It had to be right over here. This was my last trade of the day. So you had to be long, I think, over here somewhere, maybe because you had 20 or
Yeah,
30 points on it.
724. Yeah.
So it was right here. So you did it perfectly right. Let me erase all the lines. You did it great, right? So what you see is you have a big push down without getting overcomplicated with the volume and the waves, right? You had a big
Yeah.
push down. So the blue indicated that the bar was formed quickly. The triangle below indicates that it's an energy bar. Okay. So this bar will not form until this bar stops. Now the blue bar will. You'll see the blue bar forming in real time. It only takes one bar to form it and it won't erase. But you have to have this
Okay.
bar finish. You have to have this bar finish in order to see that down triangle. But if you get a down triangle, which makes this an energy bar, followed immediately by an up triangle, you have very, very good odds of having a good trade. Now, how much that trade is worth then it becomes dependent on your ability to read the market, right? So there's two things. All markets have a natural rotation, right? So usually in NQ, if you took your NQ chart, you can just do it with a 5 minute chart, and you broke your chart down into 30 point. So take your regular 5 minute chart, which I think is the time frame you're used to operating on. But if you went in 30 point intervals, even when it does this, is you'll see it pauses and does counter rotation. So, like if I mark this off, like all of this is going to be approximately 30 points. So that's roughly 710. This is roughly 750, a little over 30 points, and it's down about 30 points. And even if it goes more than 30 points, it'll go multiples of. Like when you got this break here, I think this is 60 points. So that's where the downside rotation started, 20. So
Okay.
then 90, and then you take another 30, pitch you at 60, and then 60 would have pitched you at 30. But usually, so see how when you got to so this swept through the 30, but then see how when you got to 60, see how this bar is big and long? It
Mm-hmm.
counter rotated here. You can tell just because it had to. This bar closed at the low, and the high went up here. So there had to be a counter rotation there, right?
Okay.
So understanding that when you get so when I'm thinking in my head, right? So why is that important is the question. It's because I know when I get 30 points. So you've got to decide two things, right? If you're trying to capture if you're trying to capture this move, it's what everyone wants to capture, right? But it's very, very difficult. If you're
Yes.
long, so like when you were long, let's say you got long here and here, okay? The first 30 points of that move were pretty easy to capture. And when you do the math on it, right? So if each point is worth 20 points and you got 30 points, that's $600 for each little push up, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So where a lot of newer traders get frustrated, older traders too, right? Is everyone wants this. Like this is just a fat payday, right? Everyone's like, hey, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
But they're hard to capture. Now there is a way to capture it and there are strategies to capture it, but it's harder, right? And especially when we're trading leverage. So my goal is really just to capture the, like you saw me this morning, 20, 30 points. I'm taking scales and I'm using the levels that I post for logical places the chart will go, because I made a lot of money in here. When it was zigzagging, you went long, I went short 3 times out of this area, and I think I caught a minimum of 30 points each
Oh
time,
wow.
right? And you could have done the same thing from the long side. You could have gone long down here and captured almost 30 points every time, right? So
Yeah.
but when you look at it like this, when you look at the chart like this, you can say, well, yeah, I can see that the market moved up and down, but how would I know this is the exact place to enter, and how would I know this is the exact place to exit? That becomes tougher, right?
Yeah.
So there's characteristics in there. So I'm going to walk you through. I tend to talk fast, especially at the end of the day when I'm tired. So I'm going to try and slow down for you so you see it really clearly,
Okay.
right? So you went long right here, which was 100% correct. I did not go long there because I went short here, right? And I was bearish. I thought we were going to push down, and I had different reasons than what was on the chart for thinking we were going to push down, right? But I was using my entries as a location, and what you saw here. So this is a hybrid entry. This is not one of the 4 entries, right? What would have happened is you would have had to have a triangle up followed by a triangle down, and they would have been needed to be side by side, just like this was right here. So I was short this. See how it went triangle up, then 2 bars later it was triangle down. So that's a
Okay.
9. That's a 9 out of 10 for me. I'll take that almost every time. If I see it happen, I'll take that trade, right? And I will also take, if I see it. So we all have challenges, right? One of my challenges is I get a read on the market and I want to play to the read. Sometimes it helps me enormously. Sometimes it hurts me. But once I get the read, the way that this helps me is, let's say you're uber bullish, right? Well, the way you protect yourself, let's go through a scenario that's more likely for most traders, right? Let's say a trader goes, wow, I didn't mean to do that. Let's do this. And then this. And so you go, I think we are going much higher. That's your thesis based on whatever voodoo you use to figure out which way the market's going, right?
Okay.
So if you told me, Simon, I'm very confident we're going up, and I'm going to go, okay, that is fantastic. I totally understand that. I'm going to go, I'm with you. I need the signal. So the signal I would look for would be this. So there's a next step to it, right? So that's the entry signal. You understand that. You're clear that when you get an energy bar, if it's a speed bar, even better, but energy bar, triangle up, that's rated a 9 out of 10. It's one of the top 4 entries that we have. Does that part make sense to you? That signal alone?
Yes.
Okay, and so 2 things before I carry on there, right? The way I reinforce that is I go back and look on the chart, right? So usually I try to just contain it to 9:30 in the morning, but I can look and I can tell whether what I said was true or false by going back and looking at the evidence. So let's not look before 9 o'clock, because we already know it can be pretty choppy, even though it worked. I don't want to point that it worked here, because then you look on another day and it might have stopped you. I want you to trade where the odds are very high in your favor, right? So then we come over here, and now I'm going to look through and see what are the high odds setups I have. So if you remember, this is where I was short this morning. This was my original short, right? I was long earlier here. I scalped it, and then this was my next trade right here. I had triangle up, triangle down. So we can see clearly that worked, right? So the first thing that I would pop, if I were you, usually say, well, wait a minute, Simon, you said energy bar plus triangle up is a long, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wait,
Yeah.
I confused this. So let's go back. Let's forget about the triangle up, triangle down for a second, right? So let's say we
Yeah.
took that trade. Let's say I took triangle long, triangle up, and let's say we did not take this trade out. For whatever reason, we decided it was long right here. Okay. So that entry, the way I'm going to measure that, that entry would have been roughly 14,766. We'll just round to make easy math. And it would have been a 55 stop. So I would have lost 11 points on this trade in the morning. So I would be down per contract 200 and I think that's $220 a contract if I'm correct. So then, but let's just keep going, right? So you have to take the good with the bad, and if you don't have any distinguish or any ability to read the larger chart patterns, you might have taken that, and you might have lost money, right? So then let's come to your next setup. This next trade, right here, this would have been your entry. It would have been 1429.75. And so from 29.75, let's just call it 30 for easy math. There's a term called MFE. Are you familiar with it?
No.
Okay, so write that down. When I say MFE, it means maximum favorable excursion, and and MAE is maximum adverse excursion. So what I want to know is if I did it perfectly, right, before I got stopped out on this trade, how far did it go in my favor? So in this case, the trade went from 30 to 53. It was worth $260 a contract right here if you went long. Okay, so you write that down. All you want to do is start to get a good idea as the market. So that's important because the market will expand and contract in its rotations, and you have to have a good way of keeping track of that. You don't have to measure every single one of them, but if you measure that, if you take that measure for every trader you're in, you'll start to get a good idea of what the rotations look like. And if you'll look at that from what we talked earlier, right, the base of this trade was basically 15. So if I had 15 plus 30, that brings it to 45. So that was the 30 point. It just stretched over a natural 30-point rotation there. So you can use that in your head to figure out where you might want to take your first scale. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because this is never going to tell us it's about to go 100 points. We will never know that from this setup. What we will know is we have a good chance of capturing the natural rotation. Okay? And so then you come over here. So you did not get a short setup unless you try to grab a continuation right here. But we're really looking most of the time to get on the edge, right, of some kind of pullback and then have this setup be the entry, right? So we go to our next trade. And your next entry, you have an energy bar, triangle up. Your entry again would have been 14, let's call it 25 for easy math. Right? And that went to 53, almost 30 points, right? And the natural rotation, again, was just over 30. But if you look at that move again, if you took one contract right here, so originally you lost 11. Here you have, let's just call it 20. If you close it out for 20, you lost 11, 20, and 20. So we'll keep going. You would have gotten one more trade here, but see how the trades started to contract? This is where it becomes difficult, and I'll follow with you. So this was in a choppy area, but again, if you took this trade, right, this is the third time in the same area. You really don't want to keep hitting up the same area for a trade, but that's 33, and the most you could have gotten out of that was 46. Now, 33 to 46 is still like $150 a contract, but you have to have some way of looking at the chart to know, hey, this is getting weaker and weaker as we bounce. Does that make? And I have ways of doing. I have ways of doing that, but I don't have ways of doing that and explaining it quickly, and it would withdraw from our conversation, right? So, but as you keep going through the process, what you're going to do is get to location. Like if you took along here, right? So that just broke down below a major consolidation. So all you're going to get, let's just call this 15 to 23. You don't even get $200 a contract out of this. You get about 150, right? And notice that on your a very high odds setting, nowhere have you gotten an energy bar and a triangle down for a short yet. And that's okay, right? You can see if you were trading this, that even with the stops, you would have kept padding your trade. But when I get new people in the room, what I find them wanting to do, because they see these fantastic ranges in NQ, and they want to capture those fantastic ranges, right? And there's nothing wrong with that except that you're going to have a lot of them come back on you before you finally hook up the trade. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. And so then if you go and you look, we finally broke to the low of the day over here, and you'll see right at the low, you got a energy bar triangle up. So you would have taken that long. Now that one was the low of the day. That nailed you pretty much for the turn. That was worth $2,000 a contract, right? So that's trade number one. That would be the trade that would show you how to get that turn. So there'll be another piece I'm going to...
I actually took that long, but I sold like around 7:03 or something.
Wait, so correct me. You got this long right here, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you sold at 7:03 right here?
Yes.
Okay. That's fantastic. I like seeing nothing wrong with that. So you're doing the entries correct if that's the entry you're doing. And remember, there's two stages to this, Brenda. There's two stages to understanding this, right? So there's 4 trades. And when you say it like that, right, it sounds so easy, right? Oh, there's 4 trades and just look at this, right? But there can be conflict, right? So I want to give you an example. So now I'm going to go through and show you the triangle up, triangle down trade. If you can bear with me, right? Because it's another very high odds trade, and we go right from the top, right? And I want to show you where I would have done okay and where I would have gotten stopped, right? So again, this is where I was short. Let's erase all this. And as you see in the room, I'm not guessing, right? I'm like, if the triangle prints and it prints at this price, I'm in. If it doesn't, nothing, right? I just sit there and wait. Even if I'm uber bearish or uber bullish, I want my entry. Does that make sense to you, correct? And that's what you should see me. And you see me doing that in real time, right? In the room?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So now I want to go and look and learn triangle up, triangle down. So here's triangle up, skips 1 bar and goes triangle down. So I'm going to say this is the orthodox version of that trade. I'm not going to go to any other variation except that. Any triangle up, triangle down I take has to be within 3 bars. Okay? So this would not, even though I took this short, this would not qualify on the most orthodox of definitions. Neither would this. However, I made plenty of money just from this, and if I could figure out that it was going to extend further, even better, right? So then when you come over here, right, I'm looking, no trade, no trade. I get triangle up, triangle down. This would have been my next trade right here. Again, I would have gotten paid. Now, over here, this would have been triangle down, triangle up. Now, if I took the trade right here, it's roughly 35. The best I could have done, the best, would have been 10 points. Realistically, for me, the way I trade it, I would not have closed that trade out for 10 points. I would have taken the loss on that trade because what I'm trying to do is get this thing to pop for 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 points. Like that's usually what I'm shooting for. And usually the first 20, I'm taking something off. That's $400 a contract. And I always put it like, what would I make in a normal day? Because I'm using a lot of leverage. You know, you put 3 contracts, $400, you know, if it moves 20 points, and 20 points covers my average stop is less than 20 points. So at least it gets me into the 1-to-1 risk reward, which means even if I can't read anything else about the chart, right, that I'm still getting paid and I'm still making money, which is what I'm concerned about when I sit down every day, right?
Yeah.
So then we come over here. And so let's pretend like I get stopped. I don't get a long over here, but then I stay on process. So my process here in this particular set is going to be triangle down, triangle up. So if you look, I would have got triangle down, triangle up. I would have been stopped and immediately kicked into a short. So if you look here, so remember, I wasn't very bullish. I was only looking for shorts over here, right? So that's part of my advantage of having been in the market for so long is I have a pretty good idea of targets that I'm looking for, right? So remember, when we're over here, this is at 14,728 area.
Mm.
And what I'm trying to get the market to come down to when we're up here, all this is taking place over here. And I'm trying to get into this location over here because that's my support resistance, followed by this, followed by this. Those are my potential targets to the downside. So I'm always keeping an eye on this chart. So I'm not taking any of those things that set up long, right? So, but even with that, let's pretend like I got stopped. This would be, let's just say these 2 stops are 20 points. And even if I just took this one and I netted, let's see, this would be 15, 40 points actually in stop. Let's call it 35. It would have been about 15 and 15, 30 points in stop. I'm still profitable here if I take this trade because I see how it cascaded like that. And I'm going to talk about that
Yeah.
just a second. I know I still got my payday on that. So I'm going to advance the strategy in just a second. And then we know it's at 11 o'clock. I'm going to wrap it up. But you would see that I would get right over here. And then again, you'll see that I get that triangle down.
Triangle. Yep. And then, yeah.
And then it kicks down like that. And that's fine. It looked like it wanted to go lower there, and that wasn't difficult, right? So here's where the conflict comes in. I'm going to show you. And I'm going to show you how to resolve it. So let's say you can't read the chart and you don't have my experience of looking at the market. And so I don't have a general idea of which way I think it's going to go. Okay. So when I look at this over here and I go, okay, I got a high odds trade. So let's put in, we're going to use the triangle up, triangle down, and the energy bar triangle up as our two kind of back and forth pieces, right? So over here, to go long, right? But then we're going to look at that and go, well, I have a conflict. How do I resolve it, right? So over here, I might go long. So how do I get more than 20 points? So the first thing I would say is, well, one way I could do it is I go, if I get a triangle down, I'm out of that trade. That's one way. There's a lot of ways to do this, and it's going to come down to what works best for you. You're going to do a little trial and error, right? But one thing you could say is, just like we can pretend if we were short here for whatever reason, right? We can say, I'm not going to cover this until I get a triangle up. And then you would cover right there and hopefully flip long, right? So, but what we're going to find eventually is if let's say, when we were up here and I was short originally, right? So this was a good short, right? No one would argue that it wasn't. But then I'm going to get a good long right here. How do I handle that? Well, if you notice this morning, I did short this. And when I got this signal right here, right in here, I covered it. Right now, I may have re-entered it once I got triangle up, triangle down. But when I got this, that told me that's high odds of turning. And I am not good enough to tell when this one's going to rip for, when this entry is going to rip for 30 points and when this entry is going to rip for 10 points. I can't tell, but I know it's a bad idea to stay short against that. And so I resolved in my mind when I'm trading, so this is psychological part, right? What I'm hoping the market will do when I look at this chart is that I get the entry, like we'll pretend I entered right here. There's another speed bar triangle down. I'll enter on this, and I'll just write it down, okay? And then I'll go, well, hopefully it just keeps going without giving me a triangle up, right? And if it gives me a triangle up, I'll wait till I get my next short entry, and I'll hope that I can resume it right over here, and I'll start the same process again. I'll go triangle down, and I'll go triangle up. Where doesn't that work? That doesn't work. I'm going to show you in the afternoon where it gets chopped up. Okay, where that gets frustrating is, see this in here? You could go, well, it didn't actually set up. So this is, okay, so see how this is triangle up? Well, it's not, doesn't qualify. This is triangle up, triangle down. See that right there? That's a valid short entry, right? But then when I get this energy bar, speed bar, triangle up, I've got to respect that the trade's over, particularly on this bar. Even if I was going to try and push for a new low, I've got to cover. That's a valid long entry for me, so I'm going to use that as a stop. And what I'm hoping to have happen is I catch it like this, right? So if you keep doing that process, eventually you're going to catch it where you get the energy bar, triangle up, and you go, I'm looking for the next triangle down to exit the trade. And you would have ended up, in this case, going 65 to, let's say you exited on the down triangle there, you're going to exit roughly 29, so that's going to be 40 plus 30, roughly 70 points, $1,400 a contract, right? But you're going to have other times where you'll get a signal, triangle up, triangle down. You'll end up having to cover for a loss, flip and go long, and then that long will flip you out, right? And then you'll end up short. It may be more trades than you end up wanting to take. Like there's no way to put all those algos on there and not sometimes have it conflict. So the way that when I'm coaching you, right, the way I tell you to resolve that is two things. Let's say you're clearly very comfortable with the energy bar triangle up. Like that's not a difficulty for you at all, right? And it makes sense to you and you immediately took to it, right? So I'd say, great. Brenda, here's the deal. Take the energy bar, triangle up, and do that and that only. Okay? And then wait until you either hit your price target or you get a triangle down. And if you get a triangle down, right, take your triangle, then take your energy bar triangle up and keep working it. Like this one, you'd get long, then you get stopped. But then you would take this one again right here and you would get paid again, right? And hopefully over time, you'll start to recognize location, right? And you'll be very good with it. When we were down here, the only way to look at this would have been to have a lot of advanced knowledge. You would have had to look at this and go, wow, they really tried to force it down to the prior day's low and they completely failed. And if you look, this ended up being the rotation. Here, let me erase this. So this is how I would tell, but this is harder to see if I'm not actually doing it for you. Like that ended up being the rotation to the low right there. So there's no energy bar. There's nothing else to measure here. So you can see as soon as we closed over that rotation to the low, this would be your clue. And so if you look at about 100 examples of this, you would find about 60 examples that you'll get your energy bar triangle up right along somewhere in this area. Like there'll be some kind of give and take at that location. And you'll go, oh, there it is, right above where I have all my sellers trapped. And now I can take it the other way. Or if you take it from down here like you did, the other way you use that information is you go, well, this is my wave to the low. If I'm long here, so you can also say, if I'm long here and I don't get stopped, right, I'm going to ignore all my shorts because I think that's the bottom. For whatever reason, you think that, right? But then you immediately got to go, if I can close above here, right here, then I'm probably good and I can hold that trade for the extension. That's how you get the bigger extensions. And that's how when I was up here this morning, when we were in the room, remember how I drew out and said, if we can close back in over here, right? If we can close back in over here, we probably have a very good chance of going significantly lower, right? And so see how this is a variation. This is where all your buyers are trapped right underneath here. I'll make it yellow for you. Okay, so see how all the buyers are trapped? We closed underneath them. They came back, and then they gave you speed bar, triangle down. Do you see that?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. So I'm not telling you to take that trade, but every once in a while, that'll also be a energy bar triangle down. And remember, all you're trying to do is get 2 or 3 trades out of it. So I spoke a lot. Ask some questions if you have any.
Okay, so what about to go long? What are the setups that we're looking to go long? Because we've been short here.
Yeah, so
right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've been long here. But what about to go long? What is the best, or to go short? What is the best setup?
To go short, it's the same thing as the best longs. It's energy bar triangle, like this.
And the triangle has to be the energy bar. Does it have to be the triangle has to be pointing upwards?
The next bar has to be pointing upwards. The first one's pointing down.
Okay.
So the triangle bar is so the way that looks in real time. So here's how I do that, right? I know that if that so this is how I do that in real time. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to go right to this spot and show you how I would do it. And I'll see if I can pull it off the recording real quick and show you. So right here, this is originally all we see. And I have a pretty good idea that that might turn. So when that next bar forms, so see as this bar is forming, I'll get that triangle will already appear before the bar is complete. Okay? But the bar must complete to make it stay there. And we'll have that range bar predictor will tell you, hey, this is exactly where this bar will complete. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So I'm going to put a limit there, a buy stop, right where that, a tick above wherever that says that bar will complete. And then as soon as this prints, if this triangle does not appear underneath immediately, I close that position. Like if I go in this and then no triangle appears, I'm like, boop, out. I don't care if it goes or not, because I'm only interested in working my edge. Okay, so the way that would look, bear with me for a second. Let me see if I have this trade. I think I have one that failed and I showed it in the room. Let me do this really quick.
So typically a yellow speed bar with a triangle that's going up means that the price is gonna go down.
Say that again, please.
So with the yellow bar,
Yeah.
yellow speed bar, sometimes it creates a triangle going up. That means that the price is gonna go down.
Let's see if we can find an example. Give me a second. Let me.
Yeah, we did. Today we didn't get none.
Right. Usually I don't like it like that. Like usually if it's a yellow triangle like this right here, I want yellow triangle and then triangle down is what I'm looking for. Or even here where you would have gotten stopped if you take this. Let's see how it went speed bar, triangle down, and then it went speed bar, triangle up. But I want it in the direction. Yellow needs a down triangle and blue needs an up triangle. And so I know it gets, that's why I'm telling you, don't try to trade all of them. Like practice individually, because in your head, when it's going, especially when it's fast, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm getting so many signals, right? That it's hard.
With the long, I seem to have it, but with the shorts, it's like, okay, what am I looking for when I want to go short? And that's what I'm having the most problems with.
Okay, so two things about shorts. So first of all, we're obviously in a bull market, right? And we're at the all-time highs. Usually, with today being the exception, the longs are easier. The longs are easier than the shorts. So I'm going to play this for you. It's only 2 minutes long. You're going to hear my voice over it. But I'm going to show you where this stop took place because it was really quick, right? So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to play this.
Okay.
I'm going to lower my voice down a little bit. Hey guys, we're about to set up on a short on NQ. I am going to attempt this. We haven't taken out all the stops. We almost all the stops off to the left. So I need that to turn into an energy bar. Why isn't that? So that triangle down there doesn't give me an energy bar. I will have to be out. Okay, so I'm going to attempt to short this, right? The setup's there, so I'm going to limit on NQ. Okay, so you'll see as soon as it's printed. 375. So I'm going to see where that 45 is printing. So I am limit 43. Okay, so I just got short. See how no triangle printed on the other bar to the upside? Right up here at 56. Okay, you got to close that trade right there. You know what? That's a scratch, guys. You should actually just close it out flat. It did not print. So that's the reason why I printed that, is I wanted to show exactly what it's like in real time. So there you can see, right, where the entry was. I look, oh, no energy bar formed, close the trade. And if you watch what happened, that was right over here. It stopped you pretty hard. It was over, no, this is too late. It was this afternoon. Why does it keep jumping back? There we go. That was right over. That was right here. That's where I was trying to make that trade work, right? And I needed the triangle up. And so sometimes you're going to go, but yeah, Simon, but sometimes it doesn't print the energy bar and it still goes down. And that's true. But remember, my number one concern is playing defense and getting all the pieces to line up. So if you just took all the triangles, you would get stopped. Like this would never work if you just took the triangles blindly. So you need all the pieces to fall into place. And if you looked and you were patient here, you'll see they did fall into place. If I shorted this, right, and then I waited and I went, okay, I'm going to wait for my next setup, and I took this setup long right here, that went like 15. That's $150 in P&L. Again, it came down. I get energy bar, triangle up. Well, once I see that triangle down, if I take it here, the first thing I'm going to do is go back and check over here. That's my long. Did that help clarify that for you, Brenda?
Yeah, definitely did.
Yeah, and I'm going to close it immediately. Like, I don't hope it's going to work. I don't wish it's going to work. Because what your brain's going to do is going to go, well, that one didn't work, but then all these did. And let me show you why that's a bad idea. See Friday over here where it was really grindy on Friday? You're going to get triangle, and it's going to jam you a lot. So you've got to make sure, don't get bothered. So, like, see how the only way that I would take the triangle without the energy bar is if I have a triangle up first. And you'll see that works. And see how the rotations are all muted in the morning? So the reason why I do that is because when you're wrong, you get emotional about it. So if you detach yourself from what the market's trying to do, don't try to capture those 100-point trades. Just try to stay on process. Like you're trying to grow your account so that you can get bigger and bigger size on over time. Like I don't want you to go, oh, my first trade was profitable, I'm going to double size, then I'm going to triple size. I want you to run it like a business over 2, 3, 4, 5 months of increasing the trades. So that's how I want you to look at the trades. And again, like here, if I don't get the energy bar, X, right? So that's not a trade. But if I look at it the other way, and even if I stay mentally flexible, if I'm willing to lose money, let's say I'm uncomfortable, but I go, okay, well, I know exactly where the stop is. And see all these down triangles? I don't get stopped on any of them. Or if I do, it's very, very tiny because they don't turn into energy bars with the exception of this one. But even here, I just would have flipped or at least covered for a smaller loss, right? Like we knew Friday was trend day up, so there wasn't a lot to be confused about there, right? And then you can see on Friday again, like go back to where it was a slow day, right? So you can see again, if you skip after 9 o'clock, go back to your best trade. So there's 2 best trades on there. This one is an 11 out of 10 right here. See that? If you get triangle up, energy bar, triangle down, you're not going to get it to look any better than that. If this was a speed bar, maybe, but that's like my best trade if I get all this. But even with that, right, if I go through here and I manage my trade where it's a tighter range, if I did short this, I was able to get 10 or 15, maybe 20 points out of this trade, right? But then as I look along here, I get energy bar, triangle up. Now remember, right there, my stop is here, right? And I'm recognizing that we're in trend day. We're not getting any progress. So I'm not repeatedly shorting these down triangles that are getting jammed. But that's why, even if they tend to work out afterwards, and that's why I am not a big fan of this. The speed bar with the triangle down is actually the fourth on the list. It's the last of the high odds trades. It's the last of the high odds trades. And what I would like you to focus on is the energy bar, triangle up, or triangle down, triangle up within 3 bars. And then as you get better, we can go to variations. But I don't want to confuse your head. I would just do 2 trades if I were you. Because I can go all over this chart. We can pick anywhere randomly. Like we'll just push it back, right? So this is last Monday, right? I can look at Monday after 9 o'clock. You see there's a lot of bars there on Monday going in, right? So we're going to get past 9 o'clock. This is Monday the 21st, right? So there's 9 o'clock. So I can already see, right? So, and this is the way I test that. I'll go through the software and I'll highlight where my trades were. So if I take energy bar, triangle, up or down. So it's after 9 o'clock. I could take that. Did I get paid? I did. Right? Now, was it great location or where I wanted to be? Who knows? But it paid me, right? I'm going to come back over here. So this would be a long for me. I'm either going to get paid or stopped. I'm going to go to the next bar. That's going to stop me. I can already tell you that's going to stop me, but that's fine. I think it's going to stop me. Let's find out. Oh, I lied. Hold on. Because I'm going to use the stop. It's going to be right here. My entry is going to be right here. And again, this is not taking into consideration, like I would never want to be long that. Like I'm going to say this is a left shoulder, head, right shoulder. I would not want to be short that. I mean, long that. I'd look for a short because I'm underneath that consolidation. But we'll just keep going with the idea, right? So that's going to stop me, which is fine. Assuming I didn't kick it out, maybe you would have kicked it out because it took too long or whatever the case is. But let's assume the stop, right? So that would have been a 45 to 31, 15 points. I'd be down, and let's assume let's pretend like we did it perfectly here, and we got 64 to 78, so we got 15 points there. We got to have some way of measuring, right? So we're moving along. So there's no trade here for us right now. Now that would be another long right there, right? Pull back. I'm going to go long. I'm going to go long right here at, I think that's 27. And this way I can practice going backwards, right? So let's see what happens. On that one, I get paid, right? Wasn't easy, but your entry was 26. Your stop was 12 approximately, and it went to 45. You made again, 20 points. And if you look from the bottom to the top, 30 points of rotation. See why I keep highlighting that 30 points on NQ? Because that's what you're shooting for, is that 20 to 30 points. And then as you're going through, so see how this thing's set up? No triangle down, no trade for you. But if you're still bullish and you want to take your trades in sequence, here's your next trade right here. This is your entry. This is your stop. If you'll keep managing it this way, right, you'll keep moving to profit enough. Again, this would be your entry. You have to decide whether you want to take the continuation trade, right? Entry, continuation. See how I'm not doing anything other than looking at. So I probably would never take that trade right there, ever. Right? But if you did, you said, Simon, I'm all right taking the loss, right? Put it on there. Going to stop it here. Still went to profit. You didn't get stopped, right? And you still don't have a viable short using the energy bar triangle down. Now you'll notice triangle up, triangle down here, stop me, right? See that? But what I do in that situation is if I get triangle up, followed by triangle down, and then I get energy bar, triangle up, I stop I double reverse it. That I would do. That I would turn. Like you should not get this after that bar. It should just go straight down like that. So I know that tells me to turn, right? So energy bar, triangle up, and you're just at 10 o'clock here at this point, right? And you're getting paid, Brenda, or you should be getting paid on this, right? If you're taking those trades in series, so we can see that it came back. We can also see that if you would have entered that last trade, it went 1408 to 1433. Again, this is going to be about a 30-point rotation, and that's why I suggest 20 to 30 points that you come out at least a portion of that trade, right? And you can see through that whole thing, yeah, would you have had some losses? Yeah, you would have had some losses, but if you can keep your head together and keep going through process, you will get paid eventually. And you can see there that if I wanted to be short, if I wait for my energy bar triangle down, it still went enough for me to get some kind of profit. Again, short's been very difficult the last 2 weeks, but over time it works very, very well. And if you go back over here, right, so I just go randomly. I look, okay, well, what happens when it's really like fast? What have I ever gotten to short up here? Right, like that's one thing I look at is I go, oh, this was very nice to the short side, right? And you'll see right there on top, see how you'll get on top? You'll get that energy bar, speed bar, triangle down. And I gave you you'll see this appears pretty rarely, and it gave you a gorgeous rotation to the downside. And even if you had gone long in here, right? So I think we can both agree, you'd have gotten stopped. See if you use this energy bar triangle up. But if you flipped it right here, you'd have gotten your money back, or taken the long stop and re-entered right here, and you definitely would have gotten paid again off of there. So I would focus on those two setups, the triangle up, triangle down, and the energy bar triangle followed by the triangle. I wouldn't worry about the speed bar by itself in the triangle. I would just relax my mind on those two because you should do great with it. I really can't go anywhere on this chart without finding a reasonable set of trades that would get me, like, it just doesn't matter where you look. So I'm going to tell you where people get frustrated. Okay. People get frustrated because they focus on that one trade, the energy bar triangle, right? And where they'll get frustrated is let's say you go, oh, I didn't take it at the low, but I took it the fifth time. Like, the longer it goes, the harder it is to keep it going, right? So where I see the mental errors when I'm coaching people is they'll take this long here. They'll let it come back over here, and they'll only have one trade in their pocket. So they'll take this long. They won't take any scale, right? And then they'll let it stop them, and they don't have any idea of where the trade's going. So they'll do like this. They'll take this trade. Then they'll come back over here and take this trade. So that would be two stops back to back, and they start to freak out. And instead of just keeping their head, if you just took the third trade in sequence, okay, did you have a monster day? No, you didn't have a monster day, right? But you would have recovered your losses from that day and gone, well, gosh, I wish it would have gone my way, but you don't get utterly annihilated, right? And then the other part is eventually you have to become good at figuring out where the likely roll is. And what you'll see again and again, as we point out in the room, is that these left shoulder setups, just like this morning, see, this is back on the 16th, and you'll see me draw them. Left shoulder, right shoulder, and the big extensions always come off this right shoulder, and then there's the head, right? And then you always have to get underneath. There's always an energy bar, or it's very helpful. Once you get underneath that energy bar to a high, it really gives you a clue they're going lower. Where I would pivot in this case is instead of looking for the energy. So this is where I'm going to go. I'm not taking that energy bar because it doesn't have anywhere to go. I already know from experience that even if it gets up here, there's going to be sellers sitting there, right? Most of the time, like 25% of the time it works out, 75% of the time it fails. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, show me once we get underneath here, give me a triangle down, triangle up. So I'm not going to take this triangle down, triangle up because it's going to slam into this. There's nowhere to go. But I will take the triangle up, triangle down, but now I'm applying different techniques to make the algo work for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Did I overwhelm you? Because before we hang up, I want to make sure you're completely clear.
No, I understand. I understand.
Okay. And
I did 2 trades today, and I did pretty good.
Good. Well, that's what it's all about. And then so the key to that is decide how many stops in a row before you stop, at least for an hour. For me, it's three stops in a row is very uncommon. And I pause because what I don't want to do, I want my days to look like you saw when you're in the room, right? I want my down days to either be flat or a little bit down. And I want my good days. I do not want to give back my good days. So you'll get into streaks over time. Like the market you'll just get streaky in the market. Like you'll get a good read on it over time. And you'll just come up with this determination like, hey, like if we were looking at this sequence, let's say I wasn't trading the energy bar triangle down. I'm just trading triangle down, triangle up, triangle down. That's all I'm trading, right? Well, there'll be times where like I'll get it here and I'll get stopped. But usually if I take that in sequence, right, so I'll be stopped hypothetically here. Let's say I didn't take any P&L off this trade, right? So I'm going to get stopped there. And let's say I'm looking for the short, right? So I'm going to get stopped here. But let's say I took this trade right here. And let's say instead of this trade surviving here, let's say it stopped me over here. That would be trade number 2, right? And then I get over here. I'm giving the examples of where I would be stopped. And so let's pretend this is a 3-bar combo. It's not. It's a 4-bar. But let's say I took this trade right here, and this one stopped too. So that would be like 15, 30, 45 points in Q, right? If all of that stopped and I didn't get any of it right, right? So I'm going to go, hey, That's rare. 45 points is basically 1 to 2 trades for me to cover. It's very rare for me to get 3 stops in a row, and I probably won't be a good sport about it, but I will stop taking my trades. And I'll just come back another day because the market's reset and it gets better. And sometimes it could be either you're just having a bad day, like maybe you're just not trading it right, right? Or maybe you're trading it right and the market's just wacky that day, right? Don't dig a big hole. And my suggestion is if you keep your focus on between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. or your time, 10 to 12 your time, you should be able to do very well, build your trading account, and be very happy. And then if you want to get more, uh, you know, more complex in your analysis, that's where the one-on-one coaching comes in. But you don't have to. There's nothing, if you just take that trade, there's pretty much nowhere I can go on this chart where if I take my trades consistently, right, like energy bar triangle down, that's speed bar, that's energy bar triangle down, right? So you'll see them pop up, energy bar triangle up. There's pretty much nowhere I can go on this chart with that setup and not be relatively successful. Where I will get in trouble is I miss the read, right? And I try to force my hand. Like I'll try, like, see how this never gets up here, which is what I would have targeted. So realistically, I take a stop. If I take this one, I take a stop. If I get this one, even here, I would have tried to push it up, right? Hypothetically. So I'm going to go, okay, well, that's where my stop is. That's how it works. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, cool.
I would have taken a trade right there with set too.
Yeah, and then sometimes I'm going to push it, and sometimes, so I just know the price of paying it. I know it almost always goes to some type of profitability, right? So then it becomes how good do I get at reading where the real turn's coming from? And then, like I said when I was talking to you, women are really good traders, generally speaking, because they don't get their egos as involved as men do, right? So I would limit the number of decisions you have to make in a day, try to get stretches, right? And one of the difficulties or challenges you're going to have is you kind of have been in for the last 2 years a market that's going most of the time straight up, with a few exceptions. We've had some air pockets in there, but you've navigated them pretty well, right? And the challenge is going to be if we go back to like a 2014, 2016 environment, or 2007, 2008, where all the market did all the time was this: up and all the way back down, like over and over for like months at a time. And you can make a lot of money, right? But the problem with that market when it does this is everyone who's like, if you look on Twitter or you talk to other people, like almost everyone wants to buy these really shallow dips and they don't have much technique to it. So they just buy. But all of a sudden the range expands and they get stopped, right? So that's what kills them. And that's what this answers that problem by letting you pinpoint the entry. But you will get into difficulty if you keep, like, eventually gap ups will fail and they'll push down and the cycle will change. And that's where people run into trouble. This works. It's just how far of an extension do you get, right? And you can see how you could get frustrated if you try to make all of these the turn for the day. It would keep coming back on you, right? Even though you constantly went to some kind of profitability, you'd be pulling your hair out eventually because you'd end up with multiple stops if you didn't take any profits along the way to the downside, right? And if you didn't short. So that's kind of my 2 cents. I would not take more than 3 stops in a row if I were you. Yeah, and that's it. And I am out of voice and out of time.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you so much.
Yeah, any questions you have, feel free to hit me up, Brenda. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, I'll see you in the room tomorrow.
See you in the morning. Bye-bye.